Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to the You Are Not Broken podcast. Today I'm having the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Wright, and you can find her at themidlifesexcoach.com or on Facebook at Midlife Sex Coach. She combines her training in medicine, sexual counseling, and life coaching to provide a unique sex coaching service to women age 40 to 60 plus. She offers confidential coaching in person, in video, or over the telephone. She started her career as a board-certified radiologist and still practices pediatric radiology. She's a trained sexual counselor and a certified life coach. She got her education from Stanford and the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine, and the Mayo Clinic. She's also completed a training program in sexual counseling at the University of Michigan School of Social Work. Dr. Sonia Wright has completed life coach training programs from Brooke Castillo's The Life Coach School and Learning Journeys and is a certified life coach. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me here, Kelly. I'm so excited to be here.
This is going to be so exciting because we're both so interested and passionate about this topic that this is just going to be such a fun conversation. So tell me your story. A pediatric radiologist isn't the first person I think of who is kind of has a passion in sexual life coaching. So how did you go from radiology to sexual counseling and coaching?
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting journey. So I think I would jump from the pediatric radiology to life coaching, right? Because that's an easier jump for people to get. So basically, when I'm 53 now, when I was 50, I thought to myself, there's something. Actually, I probably was about 48. I wanted to do more. I love my job. I love my career as a pediatric radiologist, but I wanted to do something to help. And I specifically wanted to help the physician community. And so I trained as a life coach, and I've been a physician life coach since 2016. And so that's where I was focusing on, and I was helping people figure out, how to live their life, how to balance out their career, how to do all these demanding things that they needed to do. But in the background, I was like living my own life. And that also involved being in a relationship that actually did not have much sexual intimacy in it. And I kind of suffered in silence for years and I didn't really talk about it. And at the same time, my clients were starting to tell me that they were having their own issues with sexual intimacy. And here I am having my own issues as well. And finally, after years, I reached out and I got the help that I needed. Unfortunately, my relationship didn't survive that because the lack of communication and the resentment, all the underlying stuff that was there for so long that didn't get addressed. The relationship didn't survive. But I thought to myself, I'm going to do this process. I'm going to continue to do this work and figure it out. And so I figured it out for myself. And then I thought, there's a lot of women out there that are dealing with this issue. And so I went to the University of Michigan and I got training as a sexual counselor. And then I incorporated that. So I had the life coaching skills and I had the sexual counseling skills and the medical doctor skills. I kind of brought it all together. And then I created my brand of sex coaching.
That's so cool. So you started specifically with female physicians, maybe naturally that being the people that you knew.
Right.
Anyways, and then did it just kind of organically grow into all women or did you see that need? Kind of how did your business and coaching grow?
Yeah, I did see the need and I realized that there was a lot of women out there that were having this specific issue. And it wasn't just women physicians, even though women physicians tend to be up in our head and we have our own issues going on. But I thought to myself, I really want to make my services available to everyone, anybody that needs to talk to me and needs the help, that I want to be there for you. So it's kind of evolved into the midlife sex coach for women. And that's for my general public. And then also the passionate physician coach, which is specifically for physicians, women physicians. The majority of the clients that I deal with in both areas are women.
Cool. Give me a fun for you sexual intimacy problem where you're like, oh, this one is just so easy or it's so fun. Like, what's a really fun problem for you to help women with?
Yeah, the majority of my clients come to me because they're not having the sexual intimacy that they want. Either they're not having it in terms of frequency or the quality. So either some of my clients come to me, they're maybe having sex once a month or once every couple of months or even years, that they haven't had penetrative sex. They're usually in good marriages, but they haven't really been able to address this issue. So that is one area that I work with, people that want to increase the sexual intimacy in their relationship, or women that want to explore their sexuality as well and they've never really given themselves permission. There's so many women that are up in their minds and they're like efficiency. That's like, and I call it like going from the to-do list to the for you list, because I'm trying to get them to shift their focus on being efficient and, checking that box that, okay, I haven't had sex in a couple of weeks. Let me check this box and get this done too. Like, hey, let me explore this sexuality. Let me see what sexual intimacy is like. Let me see what I find pleasurable. Let me, slow down, start to enjoy it. That communication between you and your partner, or if you're solo partnered, between you and yourself, right? I believe that everybody's partnered. Either you're partnered with yourself or you're partnered with somebody else or more than one person, but whatever you choose. So one area is the clients that come to me because they're interested in improving or increasing the sexual intimacy in their life. The other area is people that are interested in looking into non-traditional or alternative type of lifestyles, but they don't exactly know where to go for that. So I also help people in terms of non-monogamy and kink, BDSM. I like to normalize things, whatever it is. I just want to work on and taking the shame and the isolation away from things. That's my main focus in relation to sex.
I think we have our work cut out for us, but one of the things I find so fun about this is kind of exploring what society put in your head about how sex is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think you always have to have that conversation because we all come to our situations by having years of society telling us certain things that aren't always accurate.
Right.
What do you find in exploring that?
I really like to talk to my clients about you are the one in control. I like this concept of you're the sculpture and the sculptor at the same time. You can choose to listen to what society has to say, or you can come to a place where you decide who you are and what your own sexuality is, and you get to create it for yourself. So that's what I focus on with my clients is like, what is it that you're interested in? What would you like to know? If you don't know about your body, let's start with some basics. Let's get out that mirror and look at the vulva. Let's go even if you're a doctor, we still look at your vulva. You may know the anatomy, but look specifically at your vulva and get to know your clitoris. Me and my hashtag your clitoris is lonely. I definitely get to know your body, get to know what's pleasurable for you. This is one of the wonderful things about life, and you get to own it. You get to explore it.
Yeah, it's so fun to help people to kind of open up their viewpoint of what's possible because they just think that this is how it was or this is how I was taught or this is what I'm assuming my partner must want.
Right.
And then when you're able to help them open up their mind and explore so much more, like you just get to see the growth happen.
Exactly. Definitely. Yes.
So say you're partnered with somebody else and you're doing your own work and discovering maybe what your goals are for sexual intimacy. How do you help coach people in bringing their partner into that conversation?
Yeah. It there's all different types of scenarios that happen, right? So sometimes the partner is very keen, and my client tells her partner, hey, I'm talking to this sex coach and we're working on these issues. And the partner's like, yes, yes. And the partner loves me. They're like, what did Dr. Sonia give you for homework? Let's work on this. And then there's the partner that's like, good on you and good for that. I don't really want anything to do with it. And they don't necessarily know how to communicate. So I get the whole spectrum in terms of client and the couple of involvement and things like that. If it's the case and my client would like their partner to come in on some sessions, then I do that. And we kind of work on communication. Before the partner comes into the session, we also will work and do just some play scenarios ourselves and back and forth and talking, let's work on communication. And I make it very clear that if you're communicating something to your partner, you may want a certain result, but you don't have control over your partner. You don't have control over how they're going to react to what you have to say. You can't make them think or act a certain way that you want to, right? But what you do have control over is yourself. And this is where the life coaching skills come in, right? You have control over yourself, your thoughts, and how you react to things. So communicate, express your needs and your concerns, but ultimately you are responsible for meeting your own needs, right?
Yeah.
But usually your partner is interested in helping out, and usually when they find it means that it's going to lead to more intimacy, more sexual intimacy. They're usually on board. But you may have a case where maybe you and your partner have tried stuff in the past and it hasn't worked out, and it takes a lot of vulnerability to get to this place where you're willing to work on this sexual intimacy issues, right? And so it brings up pain, it brings up shame, it brings up a lot of different emotions. And so I really work with my clients to help them to understand wherever they are is good and wherever their partner is also good. and we're going to work with what we have, and we can get to that place. And usually at some point the partner gets a little bit more interested and comes more on board, but whatever the situation is, we can work on that. Yes.
Very cool. I see, a lot of things as far as male is the ego, right? And the ego getting involved as far as like, I'm not good enough or I'm not doing things right. And reframing that to say, hey, I'm exploring my own sexuality. I'm curious about X, Y, and Z. Would you join me? And the way
Right.
you really frame that can open up more to curiosity instead of like blaming that I'm not having pleasure because of,
Exactly.
somebody else.
Just
Yeah.
like you're saying, it's about taking responsibility for your own sexuality. I talk about this concept of, do you have a learner's permit or do you have a driver's permit? Like, are you driving your own body, your own vehicle? Are you in control of your own sexuality? Or do you have a learner's permit and somebody else is kind of in control and driving? And then you're upset because you're like a backseat driver, right? You're upset because you're not getting the pleasure you want, but you're not owning your own body and your own sexuality and exploring your own body and telling people what you like. They're trying to figure it out, and then you might be getting upset because it's not the way you want it.
I love that. And I see men too, because I'm a urologist, but it's like,
Yeah.
if women think, and I think a lot of women understand that they weren't properly educated in the rules of the road, to go with that, the driver's permit, is men aren't either, and we really have to give them some grace of like, if women weren't educated well, men weren't educated well either. And so they need their own, education on how women do receive pleasure. And I think that other, what society tells you versus how you're helping women is, society tells you that an orgasm is something that's given to you,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Instead of you being in charge of your own pleasure. And I
Yeah.
think reframing that's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I have to give kudos to the partners because there's a lot that they're juggling as well. Like during the sexual intimacy act, during penetrative sex, they're trying to figure out positions. They're trying to make sure that their partner is getting the pleasure that they want. There's a lot of things that are on their mind. But in addition to that, very much, especially for male partnered people that are male penis owners, they're also, a lot of it is tied to their identity, right? So it's so much more tied to their identity as a man as how their performance is. So there's so much on the line for them,
Hmm.
and so this is a charged issue, and it's something that we just have to get comfortable and to separate out what's happening in the bedroom and how we can make that more pleasurable does not reflect on them as a person, as a man, as a partner.
Absolutely. And I know you see specifically women, but we were talking about some resources you had. Let's just talk real quick about where you can refer men to if
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something needed.
So I do tend to work mainly with women, and I'm looking because I'm looking for. I like Barry McCarthy's book. I think they're really great books. And let me see if I have. He does a book on erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation, and then desire in marriage. So Dr. Barry McCarthy, that's the one that I usually refer people to specifically in terms of books. And then I refer to you, the urologist, as well. So I'd say check in to see are there more resources that your urologist would have, and then also talking and looking in the community for sex therapists as well that deal specifically with male issues and sexual counselors. There's less sexual counselors than sex therapists, but usually, and then also just with urologists, gynecologists, and primary care doctors, I usually advise them to build a network and to have a referral system as well. So when patients come in to talk to them about these issues, they don't necessarily have to handle all the issues, but be able to say, oh, I have a great person that can help you with this, or look at this resource online, that type of thing.
Awesome. Let's talk about long-term relationships. So you've been in a relationship or a marriage for many, many years. What are some really common challenges that you see in long-term relationships?
Common challenges, it all comes down to communication and then intimacy. Those are like the two main things. We can talk about all the sexual stuff on top of that, but usually there's a breakdown in intimacy and communication, and then there's a breakdown in the sexual intimacy, right? And so when I work with people in long-term relationships, I'm working a lot on the communication side of things. I'm working on the overall intimacy side of things, but then I'm also working on introducing ideas about things. I love to talk about sexual intimacy more so than just penis and vagina or penetrative sex. I really like people to kind of get a bigger idea of what sexual intimacy can be. Because sometimes, if penetrative sex, this whole process is going to take like an hour, and you're got a really busy schedule, and I work a lot with busy women, maybe you don't necessarily have an hour, but ultimately what you're trying to get to with sexual intimacy is a better connection and more communication with your partner, right? So what other type of fun activities can you engage in that might take a shorter period of time, where you can still have that connection, that communication, that intimacy, the sexual fun in there? So I like to like expand on it, what the definition of just sexual intimacy and penetrative sex is.
I love that. And that kind of leads us into the topic of desire,
Hmm.
which I love talking about desire because it's kind of mind blowing when you understand like what society tells you that desire is supposed to be like it's a spontaneous like smell in the air that comes and then your desire versus creating desire or understanding reactive desire. Desire
Right.
is a super fun topic for me.
Yeah, and for me as well. So, yeah, like we could all remember when we were 17, 18 years old and somebody would pass by and we would be immediately like, huh, And then, we switch to we're 35 or 45 or 55 and things aren't quite the same, right? And
Mhm.
we're thinking, well, what's wrong with me? We immediately go with what's wrong with me as opposed to saying, okay, things are shifting and things are different. Let me learn more about how this is changing. What exactly is happening with my libido now? Why is it different now than it was before? Let's go back to when you were 17, 18. You had an hour to do your hair, like an hour. Remember getting out the curling iron, plugging it in, and you were like fluffing your hair. You had an hour and then an extra half hour to do your makeup and then make sure your clothes are just right. And then you went out the door, right? Who has 2.5 hours to work on this now, right? Your life is a lot different. It has changed. And so, therefore, your libido is also different now. And that's okay. But we are more in a responsive or reactive type of libido. And you figure out what exactly is that? What does it mean? It means you're starting it from a more neutral place, right? And then you have some stimulation, either like your partner says they're interested and maybe you get on board with that, or maybe there's things that make you more interested in sex and things that make you less interested in sex. So figure out what the things are that make you more interested in sex. Do you need to relax? Do you need to take a bath? Do you need to sleep and like have a good sleep schedule? Do you need to schedule it and make sure that it's a good time that works for you? What are the things that, do you need to read some erotica? I'm definitely into the toys, and I worked in a sex toy store for a little while as well, and I'm definitely into adding those things on. And however you get the pleasure, then go for it. But also be aware of what makes you less interested in sex. Does the schedule have to be in a good? Do your kids have to be sleeping? Does your partner not have to be a pain in the butt during the day? Is he a grabby or she a grabby partner? That just turns you off.
Yeah,
So these things that you need to kind of know and understand them, and who you are. I talk about learning your sexual temperament. What do you like? What do you not like? What would make you more interested in sex? What would improve your libido?
totally. And along, I think a book that I really love that kind of when I started this journey was "Come as You Are."
Yes,
So
yes,
the whole concept of spontaneous versus reactive desire and like normalizing, responsive desire for women just kind of opened up my brain of like people think they're broken, but they're not. This data and science actually supports that as people age, reactive desire is normal.
it is. It's
Just
very
that
normal.
fact has helped so many women realize, oh, I'm not broken. There's not something lacking. That
Nothing
you're
wrong with
actually the majority.
Yes, exactly.
Do you have
Exactly.
any favorite books that you refer women to, and if they're like readers and they want to kind of get into it?
Well, definitely Come As You Are is definitely one of the books that I like. It just depends on what the issue is. If they're older, I like Joan Price's book, like The Ultimate Guide to Sex After 50. And then she has Naked at Our Own Age. Those are kind of ones that I love because I love the concept that it doesn't matter if you're 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Like I want my clients to continue to have a good sex life into their 80s and 90s and beyond. If people are having body image, then I talk to them a lot about Big Big Love. I love this book as well. So that's definitely that. But Emily Nagoski's Come As You Are, I definitely love that book as well. So there's the Find Mindfulness book, but there's just so many books out there that I love yes.
Yeah. Oh, Reclaiming Desire by Goldstein. is
Yes,
really, really good too.
yes, that is a good one too.
Let's talk with that book that you brought up, let's talk about body image and how
Yeah.
big of a deal it is with sexual challenges.
Mhm. Yeah, so this is something that I work on a lot with my clients. I really want them to understand that you need to love your body, whatever it looks like right now. It's not like when you lose that 10 pounds, when you're back at a size 4, when you look like you looked when you were 20 years younger or something like that. It's just not about that. It's you have the body you have right now. And you're missing out on pleasure, and specifically on sexual pleasure, because you're so much in your brain about, does he notice that roll of fat? He probably loves that roll of fat. Like, he doesn't care, or she doesn't care about that roll of fat. You're the only one that's thinking about that roll of fat. But when you're thinking about that roll of fat, you're not in your body and you're not enjoying this experience. And
Yeah.
it's a wonderful experience. And like, I talk to my clients about the fact that it is an honor that you get to share your body with somebody else. It's an honor that they get to explore your body and be there with you, and enjoy this mutual connection. And they need to understand it, and you need to understand that your body is sacred and it is beautiful just the way it is right now. And you need to get all the pleasure you can out of it, and you get to share that experience with somebody else. And it's a wonderful thing.
That is so beautiful. Oh, I love it. So say somebody, is having an issue maybe with their health or their sexuality, and they understand they have to go to their doctor for this, but they're really uncomfortable bringing up with their doctor. Can you
Yeah.
give them some tips or tricks of like how to even start that conversation, or maybe even when to know that the doctor you're talking to is not the right person to help you? Like, let's talk about the doctor patient kind of starting that conversation.
Yeah, I'm actually going to bring it even back further than that. I'm going to bring it back to the individual and their thoughts around sex, and their thoughts in terms of talking to the doctor, right? Because we don't have control over how the doctor is going to respond to it. And so, but if you come from a place where talking about sex is a normal thing, having sexual activity throughout the ages is a normal thing, and this doctor is here to help you, and it is okay to have a discussion. And if that doctor is not the right one and they're not necessarily comfortable enough talking about this, there's nothing wrong with finding a different doctor that can help you. Even going and Googling sexual therapists in my area, if you want to talk directly to a sexual therapist, if you want to talk to them, and then just keep keep going. That's what I don't stop. You may not find it. And I have to say, like, both you and I know that we don't get a lot of sexual education and sex training in medical school, right?
Mhm.
I went to a pretty progressive medical school. I got 2 weeks, which is more than a lot of other
Yeah, that's
people do.
good. I think I got it. If I remember back, I think it was like a half a day. Like, I remember watching a video.
And, I was lucky enough. I trained in San Francisco, so you can imagine that I got a lot of information. But 2 weeks is still is a lot for medical school, but it's not a lot in terms of the full spectrum of the information that you need to learn. And I, as a sexual counselor, I'm still learning every day, and that's actually what I love about this, is that there's so much to learn, and each one of my clients comes to me with a different issue, and so I have the opportunity to continue to learn and to grow as I help them. But doctors as a whole, we don't get a lot of training, and so it's okay if you go to the doctor and they don't seem comfortable with talking to you about this issue.
Mhm.
It's not a reflection on you, the patient. It's more a reflection on what we still need to do with the medical education and training. But
That's
don't give up and get the assistance that you need.
I love it. I love it. This is a big topic. It's like faking orgasms. Such a big topic. Like, we should do an entire podcast just on faking orgasms. So let's role play a little bit. I'm a woman who's come to you, and I'm like, Dr. Wright, I've got to dig out of this
Yeah.
problem I'm in. I've been faking orgasms with my partner for years. And
Okay.
I'm to the point where I think maybe I want something more in my life than that event that I keep repeating. Let's talk about faking orgasms.
Yeah. So Kelly, if you come to me as my client, then I would normalize and say, this is something that occurs. You might get into this place where it's easier to fake the orgasm to deal with what the underlying issue may be. So let's start talking about some of the underlying issues. And I know that this topic may not be the easiest one to talk about, but let's kind of figure it out together. If there's a reason why you're faking orgasms, do you have an idea why you might be faking orgasms?
Yeah, I think that's huge. I'm like role playing and then talking. But I think women, women, society tells you that it's your job to experience pleasure. And if they're not experiencing pleasure, they think they're broken. So they want to fake it, either to have it end or to feel like they're more normal, that they should be getting pleasure from what they're getting. And unpacking that is super interesting.
Yeah, and very often it's because they want it to end because it's not pleasurable, or because they feel like, as you say, that there's something wrong with them. But even more underlying that is the communication issue with their partner, right? Because they've built up this thing now where the partner's like, yeah, we have great sex, she comes all the time, and you're like, well, and so that might be something where they have to role play with me and we discuss it to get to this place. And I always tell my clients, blame me, blame Dr. Sonia, whatever you need to blame somebody, just blame me. If that that is going to start the conversation, then start the conversation. You're like, I was working with Dr. Sonia, and we were talking about this issue, and I want to talk to you about this. And part of it is because I care so much about you, and I was feeling shame myself, or I was feeling like something wasn't right with me, and I didn't want to bring that to you. And so maybe I decided that I was going to, just kind of fake an orgasm. But I love you so much, and I love our sexual intimacy, and I want it to even be better. So I'm on this process of learning and figuring it out. But I want you with me because you're my partner, and it's really important that we kind of do this together. So yeah, some things have gone on in the past, and I want things to get better in the future. And I know that we can do this together.
I think that's beautiful. I think giving women the tools to move forward is so important, because I think a lot of people get stuck, and or they'll think, well, I'm faking an orgasm because he doesn't give me pleasure. And it's his fault that I'm faking an orgasm, instead of turning that around to be like, I'm actually responding to something that's not pleasurable to me, and how can I own that and move forward and improve that for me.
Yeah, and also I discussed it in the fact that what was stimulating when you were 20 may not be stimulating when you're 40. Like if you breastfed two or three kids in between, you might not really want your breast touched anymore, and that's okay, right? And so if you were hooked up to like a pump, for like months at a time, you might not want anybody near your nipples ever again, if you had one of those breast pumping things, right? So, and that's okay. We all get to change. And so it's a matter of exploring now what works for you, and expressing to your partner that you're on this process of exploring and figuring out what you like now. And so you're just going to try new things and explore, and we're going to have fun doing it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, how Let's talk about just a woman's health in general and her overall fitness and her overall, body. How does that play into a satisfying sexual life?
Well, yeah, definitely. I talk to my clients about basic things, like I call it self care. The self care has to be there, right? Before you can address any other issues with sexual intimacy. And especially when I'm dealing with my physician clients that might be working 60, 70 hours a week, we go down to the basics. How's your sleep? Are you able to get enough sleep? What's your nutrition looking like? All of my clients, what is your nutrition looking like? What's your sleep? You need the good building blocks to make the hormones, to have the fun. Are you getting exercise? Exercise leads to natural testosterone, and women need testosterone too, right? You probably talk about this quite a
Oh,
bit. And
that's
so,
so
are you exercising? Do you have the muscle strength? Do you have what you need? And pelvic floor muscle, right? So you need the strength there, not too much. You don't want it contracting too much, but at the same time, you do need the pelvic floor musculature in like a good healthy way, and that will help with your pleasure as well. So these are different things that I work with my clients to make sure the baseline things are there. And then I also, on top of that, are you getting time for yourself? Like before, I'm like, the basics is the self-care, the nutrition, the sleep. Then the next is, are you getting time for yourself? Just, if it means walking in nature, if it means reading a book, you just need some downtime. And then on top of that, you can build the intimacy and the sexual intimacy, and you can go from there. But let's make sure that your overall health is in a good place.
I think for a lot of women, they give and they give and they give, right? They give at their job, they give for their kids, they give for their families, they give to keep their house in order. And if they view sex as I'm giving more, it's
Exactly.
exhausting, and they're like, I'm done and I don't want it. Whereas
Yeah.
if they view intimacy as I'm receiving pleasure, or this is pleasure for me, or it's relaxing, is a lot easier than you're like, I have nothing more to give. especially if it's not pleasurable.
Exactly, especially if it's not pleasurable. So let's get back to pleasurable sex. Let's make sure this is something for you as well, something that you appreciate and that you enjoy and you get to do for yourself.
Awesome. I think as far as, the exercise part and the fitness part is exercise makes your body feel good. And
Hmm.
experiencing your body feeling good helps you be like, how else could my body feel good? With
Right.
intimacy. And also with exercise, it, releases endorphins. It makes you feel strong. It makes you feel like my body's capable. It makes you feel sexy and confident. Like exercise is just huge for kind of your baseline fitness of then enjoying sex well. So
That's
I'm a
true.
big exercise is so good for the body, and what intimacy is getting back into the body, right?
Exactly.
Getting out of that like future to do list.
Yeah. And then getting back down. Let's coordinate it all.
Yeah,
Let's
get back down
definitely. Yeah.
So tell me, you're starting a new program to work specifically with female doctors. What's in your future with this?
Yeah, so I work with female doctors, and if you go to my website, Sonia Wright, MD, it's the Passionate Physician Coach. So I work with a lot of women doctors, but I have specifically a program set aside for them, and a group coaching program and individual coaching, because I recognize that they have specific individual needs, that definitely confidentiality. And then their lifestyle is very unique in a lot of ways. And so I work with you, and the times that I have available in the evening and weekends and different things like that. So I definitely work with my physician clients because I love them and I think that it's definitely important. I have a new course called Own Your Sexuality Now, which is in the launch phase. So that one's being built out. And it's like the years of the work that I've been putting in. I'm putting it all in one library, in one place where everybody can access it. And so that you can continually, and it's going to be a big project that continues to grow. And so Own Your Sexuality Now is my program. It's available for everybody. And then specifically, I'll be having groups for doctors and for the general public, as women in the general public as well. So definitely.
Awesome. So you don't need to be a doctor
No,
to improve your sexuality.
no,
That's
please, everybody. I'm on this mission. And this mission is to have women own their sexuality, get all the pleasure that they can. And I'm also on a mission to end the shame and isolation associated with sexual difficulties. Those are like the two things. I like we can own our sexuality, we can enjoy it, and we don't have to feel bad about anything.
yeah, and you are not broken.
You are not broken.
You're not
I love
broken.
that. You're not broken. You're okay. You're fine. And if there's something you're concerned about, we can work on that. But you don't have to sit in this place of shame. I was in that place of shame, and it's not a fun place to be. And I just don't want anybody else to be there.
Yeah, I love it. And I think, the other thing, empowering and educating for women is it's up to the woman they have the power to change it. I think
Yeah.
anybody like going to a doctor to say, I want you to give me desire, that's
Hmm.
not the way this works.
No.
It's in that it's very empowering to say you have the power to do it. You can't expect a pill or, a doctor to fix this for you.
And you don't necessarily want to, right? Because like then you're always dependent on somebody else for
Yeah.
your pleasure, right?
Yeah.
But what we're looking at is actually a way where you get to figure out what works for you, and the doctor can't exactly know. I mean, there are some shots out there and things like that, and you know about that more so. And I defer to you and the gynecologist in terms of the medication side of things, but in terms of understanding your sexuality and you as an individual and how it looks and how it functions in your life, that's something that I love to work with my clients to build for them.
Awesome. Do you have any final thoughts to empower our women listening as they look to explore their sexuality?
That it's possible, wherever you are at this point in time. It's just a matter of deciding, is this where you want to be, or do you want something else? Do you want more? And if you want more, then you can have more. You can do the research. I'm definitely about self pleasure. Learn about your body, recognize that it changes over time, and what you enjoyed in the past may not be what you enjoy now, and that's okay. Go and explore your body, explore your orgasms, explore different toys that you can use. Have fun with it. It's meant to have fun, and make sure the connection and the communication is maintained with you and your partner. Focus on the fun side of things, and then just make sure you continue to have that connection as you go forth in 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Keep going, have fun.
Yeah, it's totally possible. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait for people to listen to this because they're just going to get so much out of it.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for having me. I just had such a good time talking to you. I could talk with you for hours.
I
We should
know.
do this
It's
again.
awesome. We'll have a round two. Absolutely. If
Yes,
people leave their questions or comments, it might give us something to kind of build and see what people want to do next. So I
that would be
encourage
great.
people to give us some feedback on this and kind of see where we want to go because we're having too much fun to not do this again.
Yes, definitely. You can always check out my website at soniawrightmd.com or the midlifesexcoach.com. You can reach me anytime you want to. You can email me at sonia@soniawrightmd.com, or you can check out my new program at Dr. Sonia Own Your Sexuality Now, so OYSN.com. And I can give you all that information.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care. So good
Okay.
talking to you. Thank you, Kelly.